Welcome back. If you remember last time we took a look at a HP ProLine DL580 G5. That was a server that we got in a big free tech haul, and this server that we're going to have a look at today is also from the same tech haul. So this here is a HP ProLine DL380 G6. So the DL580 is the top of the line one. I do believe there was a DL980 at some point, but I think they discontinued that. Yeah, this is the DL380 G6. Sort of one model up, I guess, from the DL580, but also a model down because we're a 380 and not a 580. And interestingly, this one, if you remember last time, we had a look at that the top of the server, and it mentioned about an operator panel. And it appears this server does actually have it. So there you go. It has a nice little overview of everything and LEDs for everything that could be at fault. Interestingly, we are missing the little pull-out tab where the serial number and everything would go. I'm not entirely sure how that's come out. I didn't think you could remove those, but there you go. I did also notice when we got it that this panel had come out like that. But even inside, I still don't see where the serial number would be. And that just clips back on all right like that. We do have some hard drives looking at it. We have 160 gigabyte. I believe these are serial 88 drives, which is interesting. So if we fix that exposure real quick, because that is going crazy. There you go, much better. So these here are Seagate OEMs, 160 gigabytes, 7200 RPM. Not too bad. And it does also state the firmware on them as well. So nice. Now I do remember, I remember the caddies on these being quite hard to get in and out, but that one's actually gone in really nice and easy. But yeah, all in all, not a bad server, I think. So what I'm gonna plan to do, I think, is we'll have a quick look inside, and then I think I'm gonna install server 2012 on this, or 2012 R2. Seems most appropriate for its generation and its time. We do interestingly have half of the rails on here, so I'll have to see if we have the rest of the rails for them in the haul. But oh wow, there's really not a lot to see in this one, is there? Pretty empty looking. So we have our drive backplane here, so that is where we have our, I believe, just 8 drives. That is correct, 8 2.5-inch drives. And that uses 2 SAS cables there, so they're most likely going to be 6 gigabits per second. And we have the power for the drives there. I'm not actually sure what a lot of these other headers are for. I've never seen those before. Get a bit of a better close-up on those headers there. It doesn't look like there's anything that sort of tells us what they could be. Interesting. And yeah, again, with the HPs, we have these really nice hot swap fans, super easy to lift up and lift out. And as we can see, these are actually fairly clean, I guess. I'm assuming this has been running for the same time that other server was. So when I checked the dates on the DL580 before I wiped it, it seemed to suggest it was running up until about late October of 2018, which is really interesting that someone would run a server of that age for that long. But yeah, we have 6 of those, so they're redundant. I believe the non-redundant solution has only 4 of those if you have 1 processor installed. Those processors sit under this big thing here. And we also have this huge thing here, which is the PCI Riser, it's called, I guess. These things are quite interesting to remove. There is a screw around the back there, and then you have these 2 little levers here that you have to lift up. And it sort of comes out as one big package, so perhaps we'll do that in a second. We haven't really got much memory in here either, although there are 2 DIMMs there. Let's have a quick nosy at one of them, because that'll most likely tell us what the other one is. And this here is 2 gigabytes of PC3 10600R, so 2 gigabytes of 1333 megahertz registered memory. Lovely stuff. Let's push that shut for now. We do also have the default ILO credentials at the back there. I suppose we could use them when we go into ILO if we do have a look at it. I believe since this is a G6, it's going to have the older ILO in it that's not very good. So whether or not we'll actually be able to use that is a different question. Yeah, let's get these bits up. And oh, that's another thing. For any of you who don't know, on most HPs, especially if you've bought one new, you don't actually need any tools to get these open and to take them apart. And that's because they put the Allen key on the back of the server right here. So if we see if we can grab that out, there we go. And that should be all we need to get everything in this server apart. So all of these little screws here that we need to remove to get our PCI Riser cage off, this should do the trick. Should, I say. Let's try one of the other ones. I think though, if this has never been taken apart before, it might be a little bit stiff. There we go, that's that one gone. Let's try that one again. There we go. Cool, and we just heard some sounds of that all releasing there too, so very nice. And I suppose we might as well do it on the one for the CPU too. Okay, I think I've solved that issue there now, but we'll have to see. Yeah, I was going to say, whilst we've now got all of these screws undone, it's sort of the perfect time to have a look at the I/O on this server around the back. Now, as I said before, servers only give you usually the basic amount of I/O that you need to then finish off everything else you need with expansion cards. That's why you get a lot of expansion slots. And interestingly, we actually have an expansion slot up here on this one before, which I've never seen. But yeah, it looks like we have 6 expansion slots in total. So we have 1 here, 3 here, and then another 2 there. We have 2 460 watt power supplies. I'm not entirely sure who the OEM of those is. That's if they're going to come out. There we go. Oh, they're HP units. I'd have thought we fix that exposure once again. Lovely stuff. Kind of expecting for it to be like a Delta unit or something. Oh, it's a hypo. Yeah, not bad units. I reckon that's probably absolutely fine, even by today's standards. I'm not sure entirely what the efficiency of it is, but oh well, this is an older server. And that's extremely apparent by the fact we have down below PS2 ports. Check those out. Keyboard and a mouse one. And next to that we have Ethernet number 2, Ethernet number 1, VGA, 2 USB, what I assume is probably going to be USB 2 ports, the UID button, we've got our 2 power supplies there of course, we have serial, ILO, and then another 2 Ethernet ports there, and obviously that's where our tool will go back in. And that is really all of the I/O we get on this server, apart from expansion ports. Now if we have a look around the front, there is actually a VGA port and 2 more USBs, so that's for if you are the console user of the server, if you're sat in a data center diagnosing a problem with it or getting it set up. Let's actually just pull this piece off. I'm gonna have to try and remember this because I've never worked on a G6 before. I have worked on G7s, but I don't know if they've like significantly changed anything since then. Let's also see if we can get this off. I've no idea how on earth that works. Does that need to go back down again? There we go. That's a really weird thing. So let's lift that up, lift this up, and then in theory, that should just come up as one big unit. Cool. And that there has, interestingly, an X16 slot on it. So that means, yeah, 2 X8s and 1 X16. In theory, you could put a single slot graphics card in there. And down here we have, well, we do have a few more goodies. So our networking chipset, that is a Broadcom there. If we want to go and have take a proper look at it, that is a BCM 5709C. Lovely stuff. That's a pretty common chip, or chipset used for them. let's have a look what else we have here. So we have an SD card slot there. That'll be for our embedded hypervisor. We also have a squeaky can down there. We have our CMOS battery holder. And there is our USB key for a VMware, or maybe Proxmox perhaps, hypervisor key. Lovely stuff. And over here as well, we also have what looks like an expansion module for the onboard RAID card, which I'm presuming is probably going to be like a P400. As you can see there, memory board. It's annoying, they never just put exactly what model this is on the card itself. But whatever it is, it looks like we have 256 megabytes of cache. Cool. So I think I'm probably going to clean this up because I can see a lovely thin array of dust. And then get it all back together again. I really do want to have a look at what CPUs we've got too, but I have no idea how on earth this system works. It looks like it's... I've done a good job of tearing my thumb open there, but we have indeed now got the heatsink available to us. I wonder if these are going to come off very easily. They are. Let's use my other thumb because that one is now bleeding everywhere. That's a nice big sized heatsink. And we're probably going to have the world's worst CPUs. Let's have a quick nosy. Yeah, there we go. And I know I'm not going to be able to get... Oh no, there you are, you can just see it. Intel Xeon E5504. So bottom of the range, you can't get any more sucky than that. I don't even know if I'm gonna... I'm gonna pull these out. I think I have some better CPUs that we can use. My only worry is that with this being a 6th gen and not a 7th gen, I don't know if we can put E5600 series in. I think we're limited to the 5500 series only, which is a bit rubbish, but I'll have to do a quick bit of research. So, blood all cleaned up. I've actually dug out some CPUs as well that I've googled are compatible. These here are the Intel Xeon E5620s. These are, I believe, 4 cores, 8 threads each. Could be wrong. And these are 2.4 gigahertz chips. They're half decent. And I've probably pulled them out of like another DL380 at some point. But yeah, they're going to be a lot better than the E5504s that are currently in here. I do need to just clean up the server still. The only one thing I'm curious of is whether or not I actually need a BIOS update to put those in or not, since it's the E5600 and not the E5500 series. But yeah, I'm going to get this cleaned up. I then think I'm going to have a look and see if I've got any more memory. I'm fairly confident that, you know, at least some of the sticks in this huge bag of memory that I've got here will work. Well, that proves that it can even happen to the best of us. That there is a lovely bent pin. And my god, I can't even see exactly where it is. You can just see it right there. And then up next to it, it looks like, I think is it that one there is also bent. Ah, that's going to be fun to fix. Well, I guess that's the next thing for me to do then. Alright, I think I've repaired that pin now. There you go. You can still see where the damage has occurred. But looking at it close up, it is still making contact. At least it seems to be. At least, like... Yeah, you can see it's slightly more bending upwards than it is downwards. But I think there's just enough space on the pads on the CPU itself to get away with that. So yeah, a bit of a bummer that I managed to bash that, but yeah, I think we got away lucky, and we will do absolutely fine with that. So I'm going to drop the CPU in. Obviously, if we get any CPU errors, I'll just pull it out again. And to be fair, this CPU looks like it's seen better days as well. But oh well. These things happen, don't they? Just very, very gently pop that back in. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be sitting at an odd angle or anything. So I've gone ahead and put some upgrades in. We now have 6 GB of RAM per CPU. I've got the monitor plugged in and ready. And one thing I did notice whilst I was doing this is that we only actually have one of the 2 PCBs for the expansion cards. I've gone ahead and put in that Mellanox Connect X2 card along with an Emulex 8 gigabit per second fiber card that has been pulled from one of the new IBM X3850 X6s. And I noticed this here, there is no PCB here where it would go. And that little riser at the bottom there, that PCIe port, that has nothing in it. So yeah, perhaps you need additional things, I guess, then to use them. It didn't come from the factory, which is a little bit amusing to me, because I thought, you know, you always get them all. I know nowadays they only give you like the bog standard one PCIe expander card, should we call it, the one that splits a single X16 into an X16 in 2 X8s or 3 X8s, whatever. But yeah, interesting to say the least. Anyways, as I say, I've got the new CPUs in, got the memory in, I've given everything a quick clean. I guess now let's see if it fires up, or if that bent pin that I've bent has really killed off anything. So let's see if we've killed this thing or not. So far we just have an orange light. I think that bent pin might have done some more damage than what we thought. Alright, I'm going to presume it's the memory for now. I'm going to pull out all of the new memory I've put in and just put in a single stick of this registered stuff, see if it's that. If not, I believe it'll probably be the processors, either that bent pin or we need a firmware update. There you go. Well, that was more activity than what we got before. I think I'm going to leave it for a bit. Oh no, there you go. We don't even need to leave it for a bit. We have a blinky blinky. Hey, there we go. Mouse has just initialized. If you remember in the last video as well, sea of sensors is listed there. There you go, E5620s. They are running nice and cool. And we have a P410i. And there is our light pulse card. Attempting root from CD-ROM. No CD. And now it wants, yeah. So what I'm going to have to do then, in that case, is dig up some more memory and find some that's going to work in this. Okay, so I've gone through my memory box and filled in some memory here. I've used PC3L, which hopefully is compatible with this. I've got 6 sticks of 4 GB of PC3L 10600R, so 1333 stuff. This is all matching, I think. They are ever so slightly different, but I believe it's all Hynix memory. And I guess let's give this thing some power and see if it boots or not. There's one power supply in there. Let's get that second one in. Lovely stuff. And we have the orange light. There we go. Right, whilst that's booting, let's get our lid back on. So we're going to do create a virtual disk. We're going to get rid of all of the drives we do not want. And that there, as you can see, has moved it to a RAID 1+0, which is fine. And that there should be all we need, I think. So that's going to create 160 gig out of the 2 disks, which is correct, because we have 1 drive redundancy. And then we're going to create another one with all of the rest of our drives, and we're not going to do RAID 50, we're going to do RAID 5. Yeah, because that's 2 drives. We only want 1 drive, because I don't think I'm actually going to be able to fit a lot of data on this server anyway. So if we go with that, yeah, it only gives us 800 gig. I suppose it's enough, but it could be better. We're then going to select our boot volume, and we're going to want drive 01, because that's the one we first made. And there we go. Cool. And this isn't going to do anything because we don't have anything enabled for that or plugged in. And we're going to want the option to boot from the USB if we can, which is number 3. And there we go. That is now going to start loading Windows for us. Or, well, the Windows Server 2012 R2 installer. So here we go, we are on Westmere because this is 1366, and we've put an E5600 series CPU in, so that is the 32 nanometer process, 4 cores, 8 threads per CPU. That's actually pretty decent, and it looks like we do have virtualization turned on as well, so that's going to be nice and helpful if we want to put Hyper-V on here. We have 16 logical processors, not too shabby. Main board, yep, so the BIOS is still on a 2010 one, so that's going to need updating for sure. I don't think it can read any of these. Oh, it can. There you go, SK Hynix. It can read 2 of them, close enough. And then obviously graphics shows up as ATI. I don't think that's ATI, I think that's Matrox, is it not? ES1000. How interesting. So I genuinely thought these used the Matrox G200. That must have been in the G7 and newer then. Okay, so I've just got some of the drivers installed, and sadly, it turns out the display driver HP don't make anymore, and it was never actually made for 2012. This here appears to be quite a common article with the ATI ES1000 video controller in question. That is that the hardware is too old because it's based on the ATI Rage 7000 by the looks of things. That they never made WDDM drivers for it, so instead it just says to use the Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, and that HP aren't ever going to do anything about it, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well. Yeah, HP has no plans for ATI ES1000 video driver support in 2012, which is a bit of a shame considering they still do it for the Matrox G200, but oh well. I installed 9i. That gave us access to Firefox, where the download website in here works for everything, so we can get everything that we need. But to be honest with you, there really isn't much on here that we need. Like, all of this is just PCIe cards, none of it is Broadcom stuff. Yeah, we're pretty good as far as I can see. The BIOS I have gone ahead and popped on. That is here waiting to go through. I just thought whilst I was in here we'd have a look at the integrated management log. So this is where ILO stores all of its logs and all the post logs go. So in 2010 when it was first initialized on the, I don't know if this is going to be American or if it's going to be, no, this is British date time, not American time. So first of the 12th 2010, powered up, drive not configured. The memory size was changed. Background parity. Network adapters going on and off. Redundancy for network adapters. Lots of network adapter redundancy throughout the years. So clearly someone had maybe a bad cable perhaps. Now this is where it does get interesting. Up here we have automatic overheat shutdowns. So when a room hits above 40 degrees, HP servers will begin a standard shutdown. And this is entirely based off ambient. So in BIOS there is, under server availability, an option to disable thermal shutdown. So this the CPU could be happily at 42. But as soon as the ambient temperature is 42, it will shut itself down. And that won't be a forced shutdown. I think it's normally just a normal sort of shutdown as normal job. But yeah. And then from there, it just looks like it's all boring all up until today, where we see we have 2021 stuff, which is now. And that's really about it. And we can actually add maintenance notes. That's interesting. Now, one thing I was curious to see is if we have an ILO, here we go, configuration. Because it might be that we can configure ILO from here. There we go. So I'm betting the firmware on this, it's actually quite modern, 2018. And obviously the server ROM itself is quite old. Let's have a look at the standard network settings here. And it has actually got an IP address, so why don't we jog on down there and see what the crack is. I'm just thinking about it, we're going to have to set user, so I'm just going to do modify on that. I'm going to change the password. Just apply that. And that now should let us access ILO. And you can probably tell already this is quite old stuff. Two-factor authentication. Interesting stuff. There we go. So I'm not entirely sure how well you can see that. That should be a bit better for you. This here is ILO 2. So nowadays we're on ILO 4 or possibly 5, I forget, which is a lot newer than this. But yeah, and interestingly, our last log here is actually a power supply failure. Looking at both of the power supplies show they have licers on, so that is working fine. We can see the serial number here, the product ID, the universal ID, the ROM date. And I wonder, have they installed a license? They have not. So we have ILO 2 standard, which means remote console will only work in BIOS, and after you get out of BIOS, which is the server is aware of, it'll boot you out. Now, I think I'm going to leave all of this. There's not really anything we need to do in here. There is some sort of power settings that you can do, or at least There you go, dynamic power savings mode. If we just do OS control mode, and that's fine, that'll sort of just let the OS look after all of that stuff. And we will install that BIOS update as well. And that shouldn't take too long. And whilst that's going, we're just going to get Crystal Disk Mark installed. Have a quick nosy of how fast our second RAID is. We've been in GPU Z, so that's fine. I did try downloading some custom drivers for the ES1000, but no bueno with them. Yeah, so we can see ATI ES1000 RN50 is the one we've got. All in all though, not too bad. Right, let's do that. A reboot is finished. Let's reboot now. And I think, to be fair, once we've done that, this server is kind of done. There's nothing really more to do with it. Yeah. Oh well. That's, I'm still pretty happy with that overall. Let's move all this junk back to where it was. Because that's really all we need to do with this server. It is up and running now. There it is, the free beast. And interestingly, as I said before, I do actually have another one of these. I thought the one I had, which you can just see, there it is, this one here, I thought this was a G7, but it's not. It's actually a G6, which you can't see, but literally, where is it, just around there, it says DL380 G6, which is exactly what this one says on the front of it too. So yeah, thank you all for watching. That's been pretty interesting, I think, having a look at this server, and especially what we've managed to get out of it, because I'm betting if we left the OS partition on the same set of disks as the data where we're testing on for that, we'd have probably got abysmal performance in comparison, which is why it's always better to split them. But yeah, I think all I'm going to do for now is let this thing do Windows updates. I have enabled remote desktop connection on this, so I can get to it from my PC upstairs. And what is our IP? 182. Lovely. And we have our 24 gigs of RAM. And we're just going to go and grab a quick Windows update. Lovely stuff. Nice. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.